And hello there. Welcome to a Gnome Stew video Gnomement. I am John Arcadian, and I am going to be broadcasting live today with Andy Hopp of Muto. How do you say it?
Mother Oath creation. Like Mother Earth.
Like
Except
Mother
with
Earth.
an attitude.
Except with an attitude, because Mother Earth has to have an attitude.
Of course.
Andy Hopp, you are the creator of the low-life setting, which is done in the Savage Worlds right now. You are an incredibly accomplished artist. You run Con on the Cob and Oddmall. You're kind of a jack of all trades in gaming.
I'm all things to all people. Or something like that.
So today, we want to talk a little bit about low life, and it is an incredibly unique setting, and that's got to offer some challenges running this incredibly unique setting for gamers who may not be used to something that's, you know, kind of off the wall like this is. So why don't you first start by explaining what low life is?
Okay, I'll do that. Well, first of all, hello everybody. And question quickly: sexier with or without the glasses?
It's kind of a Superman Clark Kent thing, but
I know. I even have the little S on my forehead, you know?
Yeah, you look like Superman with the glasses. It's kind of weird.
All right, I'll keep them on because then I can see. All right, anyway, low life is a setting that takes place gazillions of years in the future, way after humans are extinct. Everyone, like every possible calamity or cataclysm that you've ever heard of in a movie or a story or a book or anywhere has happened to the planet. Humans are gone. There's a picture of some stuff happening. Anyway, humans are extinct, and everyone's evolved from cockroaches and Twinkies and worms and the things that survived, the various dregs that survived all the apocalypses. Society is based on the misinterpreted evidence of the ancient humans. And it's a blast. It's a lot of fun. It's very whimsical. It has some darkness to it, and it's actually very playable. It's not just goofy poop jokes and stuff like that. There's actually quite a bit of, you know, actual playable material to it, and some pretty deep philosophical issues as well.
Now, I've played Low Life, and I've read the book, and there are a lot of really interesting settings, interesting themes in here. You know, this is not your typical D&D or your typical Shadowrun, or it's not a movie you would go out and see and say, oh, I want to play the game version of that. It's very different, very unique. How do you get players to buy into that when they're coming to the table to play?
It's sometimes a challenge. When we first first came up with this idea, first started promoting it, there were people who heard about it and would say things like, oh, how terrible, what a stupid idea, this is for kindergartners, you know, how can Pinnacle be putting out such a stupid product? But then once the game actually came out, those same people were sending me emails apologizing and saying how wrong they were because they were so impressed by it. It is sometimes a hard sell. A lot of people, they hear the fact that you can play a sentient Twinkie in the game, and that sells them right there. I don't know, there's a deep-seated something, a hunger within us to play a Twinkie. But I don't know exactly what it is about it that sets people, you know, that attracts people or doesn't attract them. If you're into something different, something that isn't your typical dwarves and elves and Tolkienian fantasy, but something that really I've never seen before, you know, it's something you may be interested in.
Now, there are very many interesting things. I know in Low Life, the human race, the human race, doesn't exist anymore, correct?
That's correct.
It's just these remnants kind of remember things about them or are finding the remnants of them.
Yeah, it's all based on the archaeological evidence, but they're stupid. They don't, well, they're not really stupid. They just don't know what it is. They find stuff and don't understand. So that picture you have up right now, that's Daddy Hassafras, a humanitarian minister. The humanitarians believe that humans are going to come back someday, and when they do, they're going to be pissed off if we don't have the world ready for them. But based on the archaeological evidence, they don't really know what humans look like. So all those things in the picture there are representatives of the species.
Okay, so there's not a lot of place for you to connect and say, all right, here's what I would be if I were in this setting. You really have to get outside of your brain pan if you're playing a Twinkie. You know, you have to think, what would a Twinkie do? What motivates a Twinkie?
Well, kind of. I mean, they're all individual organisms. They're people. They might look like a Twinkie. He might have his own prejudices based on his species or based on his upbringing. In general, the Creamfillians, as they're called, they don't like any remnants of the human race because of their history together. You know, the ancestors of the Creamfillians were entombed in cardboard boxes and devoured for nutritive consumption by the ancient humans. So they typically they don't like them. But that doesn't mean that you can't have a creamfillian who does care for that sort of thing. It's just as a general rule they don't. I don't like to pigeonhole. Like I don't have a race where this says like all elves are nature-loving dancers, and they like all that kind of stuff. They're musical theater aficionados or whatever people typically play elves as, and all dwarves are grumpy, gruff guys with axes. I try to stay away from that. We do have a few species like horks that are generally rude and crude and violent, but as a rule, I prefer to let people make individual characters based on the merits of that character and what they prefer to have that character be. So the species of your character isn't as important as just what you want, what personality you want your character to have. I think that answered your question.
Yeah, there are no absolutes. There are no you have to be this or that.
Exactly. Just because you're a creamfillian doesn't mean you have to hate all the humanitarians or all the bodals. Bodals are another species. It stands for being of dubious lineage. And they're apparently what the ancient humans that survived devolved into.
Okay.
Possibly. No one knows for sure. But that's kind of how they build themselves because it makes them feel important. But so in general, creamfillians don't care for bodals, but that doesn't mean they have to be that way.
Right.
Yeah.
All right. So Low Life is built with the current edition of Savage Worlds. What concessions when you were building this did you make to fit in those rules, or how did you make those rules fit in to play the bodals and creamfillians and smellomancers and these various?
Well, typically, I try to make everything just from the point of view of the narrative first. What's most important is the setting and the story and the characters, and the rules fit in after that, although they have to make sense. In this case, when the game was first created, Shane Hensley, who runs Pinnacle, he was just a fan of my art, and he came to me at Origins and said, I would like you to do a book for me about anything you want. And I said, oh, that's awesome, I'll do it. Can I write it too? And he asked me to send him some writing samples, and he really liked them. So I wrote and illustrated the book. So there was no one really to bounce it off of and say, can I do this, or does this make sense? There's a great Savage Worlds Yahoo group that helped me with the rules, because this was when Savage Worlds was brand new, and not many people knew the rules of it, including me. So I did have a lot of help. People like Jody Black and Clint Black and Sean Preston and Shane himself. A bunch of other people helped me fit the scenarios that I wanted to have into the rule set of Savage Worlds, and it worked really well. So, but another thing we're doing right now is part of the Kickstarter that's going on. We're trying to get Pathfinder rules and Fate Core rules made for Low Life.
Do you think that the Pathfinder and Fate Core will fit as easily as the Savage Worlds did?
I'm honestly not familiar with Fate Core yet, but I've heard that it's a very good setting, and a lot of people have offered to help me, fit Low Life into it. So I can't really speak to Fate Core, but as far as Pathfinder goes, I know it's a wonderful setting, but it is going to be a huge job to transfer it from Savage Worlds to Pathfinder. I know that's the case, but I have a ton of people who are eager to help me with it. It's just that Pathfinder has so many more rules and so many more things to keep track of, like hundreds of spells rather than like 20 or so that you have in Savage Worlds that you can then use to characterize them yourselves. Whereas if I'm not that familiar with Pathfinder, but if it's anything like the older versions of D&D where you have individual spells, which I'm pretty sure it is, that's going to be a huge job. And but yeah, I mean, it's a huge job, but we're ready to take it on. And I'm pretty sure that Pathfinder edition is going to happen whether we reach the goal or not. It's just whether or not it's going to be a PDF or a printed product that the stretch goal on the Kickstarter is about. Yeah, so it is going to be a big job, but we'll do it.
So what would you say your number one difficulty of taking a really unique world setting like this, a really unique idea of this, and adapting it to rules? If somebody out there had a really interesting idea along these lines and said, I want to do this in Pathfinder or Savage Worlds, what's the number one piece of advice you would give to them, or the biggest challenge you had?
It's pretty much the same advice I would give anyone anytime they're running any game, anywhere, is the story and the narrative and the characters have to come first. Just, in my opinion, as long as you have a good game master who's called the boss in Low Life, and good players, you're going to have a good time. And it shouldn't matter too much what the rules are. That's just how I play. I don't know how everyone else plays. There are people who are just into the fighting and just into the, rules lawyering, but for me, it's all about the role playing and the setting and just having a great time and moving the story along. And that really is more dependent on the people at the table than it is the books at the table. I guess that answered your question. Maybe
Yeah,
not.
absolutely. All right, so final question. You've got the Kickstarter going for the Rise of the Lowly Kickstarter. Why don't you tell us a bit about that?
I will. Thank you. Well, right now, we have the redredged version of the core rulebook up for a Kickstarter campaign. It's doing pretty well. We've already made the goal, so the book's going to happen. We've actually made more than double the goal, which is great. The reason we're doing a new one is because the old one is just about sold out. And in the 7 years since I made that book, I think my skills as a writer and as an illustrator and my vision for the world itself have expanded considerably. So I thought it was time to redo it, this time in full color. The old one was sepia-toned images, which a lot of people really like, but that book still exists. It's just we're making a new version of it. There's a literal ton, I measured them, of stretch goals on this thing. Tons of awesome stuff. There's the Boss Blocker GM screen, figure flats, a whole bunch of miniatures, a whole bunch of t-shirts. There's the Dementalism card game. Here's the Dementalism card game right here. See? There's the Whole Hole, which is a low-life guide to Keister Island. Woo. See? And yeah, all kinds of stuff. Man, check it out if you would. There's a whole list of them. I can't remember them all right now, but there's a new slog stacking game called Slog Pile, which slogs are these sort of Twinkie-like slug creatures from Low Life, and I'm making a game that's kind of like Jenga, where you stack them on top of each other, and tons of other stuff. There's a book called Holy Crap, which is about the religions of Oath. Oath is the world where Low Life takes place. It used to be called Earth, but over the times, people have changed the spelling and the reading and the pronunciation of it and all that kind of stuff. There's some dice, just lots of crazy stuff. Yeah.
So the question that brings up to me, the final question, which of course I said 5, and now we're going on 6.
We can have 6.
Where do you come up with all this stuff? How do you keep going, ooh, I want to do you just kind of let yourself run wild?
Yes, I do. I'm weird. I'm just a weird person. That's it. I have to scratch my nose. Okay. Anyway, I thought I'd announce that I had to scratch my nose rather than just scratching it, so people watching at home or at work or wherever they are wouldn't mistake a scratch for a pick or something.
Right. Give that not safe for work.
That's such a terrible thing, but I wanted to verify that, clarify. Anyway, this is unscripted, by the way, everybody, so you can tell that I don't know what to talk about. But anyway, you asked me a question, and I forgot what it was.
Where do you come up with it?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of it I'm influenced by everyone around me and everything I ever see or do, just like everyone else is. But in general, I really, people ask me that question all the time, and I don't have weird dreams. I'm not on drugs. I'm just a weird person. I learned a long time ago that one of the most important things you can have in life is a good imagination. So I've worked hard to develop my imagination and try to do something a little different than from everybody else out there. I guess it started in preschool or elementary school when I was doodling on my notebooks instead of paying attention to the teachers. And, it's just kind of gone from there. I have no idea why I'm attracted to more unusual things, but I saw an opening. There's a million people out there who can paint dragons or paint elves or, whatever, or chicks in chainmail bikinis that they can do far better than I can. But I've always had the goal of doing something different, bringing a different vision to gaming. So that's what I try to do.
Okay, well that is excellent. I've played Low Life. I have Low Life, and it is definitely one of the most unique settings that I have seen out there.
Thank you.
So I think that pretty much takes care of everything. I guess there's only one more thing to say, and that would be praise Jelvis. Thank you very much.
All right, man. I guess signing off. Have a lovely day, everybody.